Let's check the scoreboard while we're at it. So the SEC is 0 for 3 against the XRP community, Ripple, and the executives, Brad and Chris. Yesterday, the news came out that the SEC surrendered the case against Brad and Chris for aiding and abetting. Ridiculous on its premise, and they knew that they never had a case, but they did it anyways. They had to stall up the incumbents. XRP and Ripple was the biggest threat to the incumbents. That's why the lawsuit got filed nearly 3 years ago today. So 3 years later, $200 million spent in legal fees. And what did it get the SEC? A big fat goose egg. The first loss was served up on July 13th when Judge Torres ruled that XRP in and of itself was not a security. She also ruled that the programmatic sales and the sales by the individuals weren't securities either, but that the institutional sales were a security. So a little score. I wouldn't call it a victory. It's definitely not a victory, but it was a score. They scored a goal with Judge Torres ruling that the institutional sales were an investment contract securities. Congratulations. But then the SEC wasn't done. They filed for the interlocutory appeal, which was then denied by Judge Torres. So that was the second L that Gary Gensler and the SEC took. Now, yesterday, they did it to themselves with the fatal mistake of filing aiding and abetting charges against Brad and Chris, the executives from Ripple. Yesterday, the SEC withdrew that and dismissed the case completely. Now we get to see a final loss served up to the SEC, and that is going to come in the form of the settlement. So all that's left to determine is, the damage is done basically with Ripple's institutional sales. $700 million worth of institutional sales. Some of those were ODL. So now we're going to see a battle ensue, on how big of a fine Ripple will have to settle up here to get the SEC off their case. The other thing that I want to mention is that a lot of folks are talking about the appeal that's coming from the SEC. And that's why they dismissed this case against Brad and Chris, is so that they can get to an appeal faster. Well, the problem with doing the appeal and opening this case up once again is you're opening it back up to continue getting exposed by the XRP community. John Deaton saying that if this case had gone to trial, Brad most definitely would have called Bill Hinman to the stand. And this is what the SEC cannot have. This is why I believe that the case will be settled up. This is why I believe that they will not appeal, is because they know that if they keep pissing off the XRP community, we're going to stay over the target. Now we have the Ethereum whistleblower Steven Narioff on the case as well. We are completely exposing the SEC and the other three other agencies that have really harmed not only the XRP community, but the American capital markets as a whole. So right now, as the score stands, the SEC, 3 losses, no wins, and we'll see when this case settles up. Let me know in the comments down below. Will this case settle up? And do you think that the SEC will appeal? I will see you guys in the next one. God bless you all.